views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Blue Ridge PBS, the Virginia Department of Education, or the Virginia Society for Technology in Education. Blue Ridge PBS, in partnership with the Virginia Department of Education and in collaboration with VISTI, the Virginia Society for Technology in Education, is talking to leading educators about what gets them energized and how technology is being used to inspire student engagement. This is Activated Learning.
Seeing kids fail and fail miserably, but then come back and succeed, and the tenacity that that they're just going to stick with something and try to work it out.
They're excited about what they're doing, and it's not. And I don't think they think they're working on a robot.
Mm-mm.
You know, it's more
working on a problem. Welcome again to another edition of Activated Learning. Actually, our last episode of this season, our inaugural season of the podcast, and I am so happy to be here at the College and Career Academy at Prudent in Suffolk, and I am joined by John Littlefield and Christine Lafferty. Christine, you identified yourselves as Lafferty and Littlefield as I came in, so you must be quite a pair around the school division.
All right.
I'd just say we were both well known throughout the district in their technology capabilities.
Great. And we're here to talk about the SEAL Challenge, which we'll get into in a second. But, I always like to start by just getting to know you a little bit. So, John, you're on the end. I'll start with you, but you are the director of technology here. What's the Cliff's Notes version of how you got to where you are?
Been in Suffolk 26 years, came to Suffolk. They had no technology. The goals were, let's get Suffolk some internet and get them some technology. And we've gone from none to fully equipped schools and integrated classrooms, ITRTs. Our staff went from a staff of 2 to a staff of 30 now. So that's the Cliff Note version.
Sure. And for people who are, I'm from the western part of the state. People listen to this from all over, including outside of Virginia. How do you describe Suffolk County schools?
Suffolk is 426 miles. It's a mixture of city, and we're actually Suffolk City schools.
Suffolk City, sorry.
That has a rural aspect. It's a primary peanut and cotton crops. And then the urban and downtown area where we have the Planters Factory was here. So we have a lot of the urban and housing projects in the downtown part of the city. And then on the north side of the city, it's another diverse side. We have the technology corridor for Harborview, where the Joint Armed Forces Warfare Center is. And there's several other technology industries here in the city. Amazon has a shipping facility here in the district. Target does. One of the largest East Coast distribution facilities is being built and developed right now in Suffolk.
So when you start talking about the need for skilled workers, especially related to technology, one might think, oh, that's where the peanuts come from, but it's a lot more than that, isn't it?
A lot more than that. The Amazon facility is a fully robotic one. So, this challenge that we'll be talking about shortly ties right in with, some of their needs. The Target facility is also a robotic facility. So it definitely fits in. And our city looks to the school to produce student workers or worker force that can support these industries.
And Christine, you were an ITRT, you were a classroom teacher and then an ITRT, is that right? And tell me what you're up to these days.
Currently, I am the data manager for Suffolk Public Schools, so I do state reporting, help with student information system, and then, of course, we manage the SEAL Challenge regionally for Virginia.
And for both of you, and for me as well, having been around a while and seen how technology changes, something like the SEAL Challenge is cool because it really brings together so many of the things we want our kids to know about. So let's start with that. Christine, what is the SEAL Challenge?
So the SEAL Challenge stands for the Sea, Air, and Land Challenge. It is a challenge that was designed by Penn State. We just happen to be the host division for Virginia, and it allows students to build and design a robotic drone or machine that can either do a sea challenge, an air challenge, or a land challenge.
And just to be clear, this is available to anybody in the Commonwealth?
It is. We've had students from Chesapeake come, and we've had teams come from Virginia Beach. In fact, one year we hosted a team from Florida actually came because Florida was exploring whether they would host a program here. So it is open for other divisions to join.
And I just want to put a plug in for those of us, west of the Blue Ridge. It would be a very nice, a great, culminating activity for your robotics club or your computer science kids to work on this and come here and s- maybe get to see the beach while you're here. And what? So you started. You were fairly early on participating. This is what year of you guys participating in
So
this?
the first year that we did the challenge was the 2017-2018 school year. And kind of our connection to that is I had a family member who worked for Penn State and was familiar with this activity and said, you really need to check it out. And so that's kind of how we got connected. And we've done it every year since then, except for the 1920 school year due to the pandemic.
Yeah, we'd like to not
Yeah.
that year that shall not be named. And so, John, as administrator, director of technology, when Christine came to you with this idea, um, what were your thoughts initially, and what were any concerns or excitement that you had?
Love the idea. I did recall one of the things we wanted to do, or I asked about, was could we have our middle school students participate? Because the core challenge is geared around high school students. So we wanted that, also funding. So there's some components that we had to fund for this. There's a large tank that the aquatic robots participate in. There's a course that the land-based robots participate in as well. So that was another concern. And we were fortunate. At that time, our superintendent was very supportive and told me, okay, go ahead and do it. Find the money, make it work. So we bought the tank. Actually, a group of students and instructor at this facility built the land course for us. And those are really the big challenges. And then how do we staff it? Because staffing of an event like this is always a challenge, but we move forward with it and we're able to do it.
And Christine, you're the data manager, but this is
Right.
this is not something that probably normally appears in an organizational chart under the roles of the data manager. And I want to talk about the specifics of each challenge, but I like to start kind of like the program itself, like uh, what's the question? It's like, how much work is this for you if another, if you're running the whole challenge? So it would be less work for another division to send their kids here, but like, what's expected of you as
Right.
having to run this thing?
And I think that's a great question because actually, students could participate here, but other divisions might want to host this themselves too. And so for us, I think initially the hard work was getting the equipment that we needed, getting the courses that we needed. And then once you kind of work out the details of it, every year you just kind of redoing what you've done the year before. So it's not that intrusive. In May, it's a little bit challenging because there's a lot of work. The setup is a lot of work.
Christine is very humble. And she puts a lot of time and energy in coordinating this, reaching out to the teams to make sure they've gotten their documents created, the team structures are correct, making sure we don't exceed the number of participants. She organizes the lunch for the event. She also takes care of making sure we have the trophies. So don't let her take it and it's really easy. She definitely takes a lot of this.
But once you've done it, it's not
It
terrible to do.
One common thread with a lot of the exceptional educators I've talked to this year is, some extra thing they do, whether it's running the robotics club or whether it's being, starting a girls who code club at their school. Even though it's more work, what do you think are the benefits of doing something like this that's maybe not required of you?
So challenge day is the benefit because just seeing the interaction of the kids, seeing kids fail and fail miserably, but then come back and succeed, and the tenacity that that they're just going to stick with something and try to work it out. Just having the opportunity to see that, and then having kids to say to you, "This was great. They really enjoyed it. They've learned a lot," and tell you they're coming back next year. That's the benefit of it.
No, I would also say, the challenge day is the day, but watching the students collaborate, problem solve, help each other, not
Other
just on
teams.
their team, they help other teams. We had one year a team was on the bleachers, knocked their robot off. It shattered into a bunch of pieces. and they all got together and solved the problem, and they were still able to compete. So, it's watching these students, and that was a middle school team,
Correct.
that they just pulled together. First, they were devastated. They worked it out. They came up with a solution. How do we fix this? How do we move forward? And that's what we need today. We need problem solvers.
Problem
Right.
solvers. That is, again, another common theme. Like the most important thing we can do, and one of the things that technology helps us with in the classroom is, it's always a big problem to be solved.
Yep.
Okay, so now let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
What is the challenge? What are students and teams expected to do? And maybe we can break, if it's appropriate, we can break it into the different categories or where they all fit together.
So I think let's start with, what do the teams do? So for teams, usually in the first semester, they will, view some videos. They'll start to look at the documents to see what is this whole challenge thing about.
The
and
challenge is a little different every year, is that right?
It can change. It doesn't always change. It hasn't changed in the last 2 years, but there have been some tweaks since we've done it. Yeah. And we do add some things to make it so that they don't always know what's going to be there. We have some hidden secrets that we'll do. And so then in second semester, once those teams kind of shake out, kids that are interested, meeting with their coach at their building, they'll start to decide, I want to do a sea challenge or an air challenge or a land challenge. And then they really kind of deep dive into what does that entail. And they'll start looking at, what type of robot do I need? What do I need that robot to be able to do? Eventually they'll get to a point where they'll do a PDR, which is a preliminary design review, which engineers have to do. They submit that to Penn State. Penn State gives them feedback. You forgot this. You need to include this. This won't work. This will work. They give them some feedback.
What a great skill that
Right?
we all need
Right.
to learn how to take
Feedback.
and sometimes criticism.
Correct.
Right? Yep.
And then they'll start ordering their parts and building the robot. They can purchase robots off the internet and, customize them. That's completely acceptable. And then they'll start their process of testing to make sure that they can drive, they can do what they need to do. So that's kind of their process. They come to challenge day, and then, they got to put it all out there for us.
So have they mostly, like, let's say somebody's doing a sea challenge, have they probably built some sort of tank at their own school to practice?
Sometimes they do, or they might have access to, some of them have used pools in the past, or bathtubs, or just big containers, just to make sure that they can, be buoyant and then be able to dive and pick things up. So they'll do some of, as best they can. What I like to say about this competition, different than any other competition, because, there's VEX and all those others out there. This is the MacGyver competition. You've got to be able to figure out how to make something work and use things that are in your home or old cell phones. We've had people go by, pick backup cameras from pick and poles, baby monitors, you name it. It runs the gamut. So this really is about ingenuity.
I'm sure there are people wondering, this sounds great. How much does it cost? What's our obligation if we were to participate? But also, how expensive is it and who's paying for it?
I'm going to chime in there a little bit on that. So initial cost for Suffolk, we bought the tank. The tank was about $1,500. The course, I think we spent $300-400 on materials for the students to build it. It's plywood, 2x4s. Buying a tank, building the land course were probably the two most expensive components. Once that's done, we reuse those every year. The tank is a tank that most fire departments may have. So, you mentioned the western part of the state. They may be able to work with their local fire department and they call it a dump tank. It's what a fire department would use to fill up extra water for their water truck to extinguish a fire.
How big is it?
It's 10 by 10 and probably 2.5 feet tall. We get the fire department to come out and fill it up for us. So there's ways to reduce some of the cost. The land course you got to have. The components within the land course are very specific. So there's some other pieces that we actually had to build the first year. That was a little challenging, I would say.
And you involved the building trades construction?
Building trades actually built the course, and then I think I did all the blocks for it. And we all got
certain size, certain
weights. There was a lot of little special pieces to it, so we did that ourselves. And then the other additional costs, which we take out of the department budget now, is the cost of the meal for the lunch that day. We provide all the participants a meal and trophies. Got to give them some awards and recognition ribbons and things like that. we're probably under $1,500 annually for the 120 something.
But those aren't expenses that you don't have for other things going on in the division, right? I mean, that's not a strange thing.
It's not a strange thing. We take it, that's coming out of the technology budget. Now, the last 2 years, we were very fortunate. We had a state grant that paid for 2 years. And also, there's some other funds that the state grant helped the teams. And Christine, you can probably give more details on that.
There's a cost limit for teams. So teams can use whatever they want to build. They do have to assign a value to it. But if they do decide to buy stuff, obviously having money to do that, their limit is $600. So everything that they value or they purchase has to be $600 or less. They get points deducted if they go over that $600 limit. So that's, a piece for the teams.
Another great skill, right? Budgeting for technology.
Right. And then the other cost is every year the kids get T-shirts, which is, you always have to have that. So Penn State funds that with DTRA, which is the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, and they pay for those T-shirts for the students each year. At least the last 2 years they have.
2 years,
We paid for T-shirts initially,
right.
Correct.
And it's also something it seems like a division could go out and find some corporate support. It would seem like a pretty easy sell, right?
Correct.
And even the lunch, we could probably, if we were push come to shove, we could probably find a sponsor for that.
But this challenge also different than any other challenges. There's no registration fees for teams or students. So that's another thing that, it's free to students to participate.
And the $600 per team, that's their responsibility?
With the grant, we were using some of the grant money, and if they turned in their preliminary design review, which got reviewed by Penn State, we would fund up to 50% of their budget, and they would have to turn in that budget, and we would give them the money. The state, because of the pandemic, and we had challenges with that, the state did allow us to fully fund their budget, so they got some extra money that they could use to design their.
But even so, $600 on a team.
Minimal.
I mean, you think what a football team costs?
Correct.
It's minimal.
Correct. It's minimal.
And there's another component. It's military connected.
Correct.
So we have a keynote speaker we typically have come in. I'll toot my own horn. My son will be the keynote this year.
Nice.
He's a captain in the U.S. Army and for EOD, and he's coming up to do the keynote. And then they have an EOD squad or technical team that's going to come down from D.C.
EOD. Define that.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Very good, Christine.
Yeah.
Explosive ordnance detail. So they're sending out a team of technicians who actually will bring bomb suits, the robots, the drones that they use in their actual job. We've had the state police come in.
Yep.
They've brought their bomb squad.
Yep. We've had TCC come as well.
Yep.
And
what is TCC?
Tidewater Community College.
There we go.
And so they've come in and they've just set up some displays for programs and showing some of the things that they do with robotics as well.
And that brings me to, the practical applications of this. It's cool, as are the other robotics competitions. This one, I mean, there are people doing this kind of work in the military, but also you mentioned in the police, but also, so many other areas. Just talk to me a little bit about how this fits in with vocational plans and education and meets a lot of the objectives you guys have.
I think you hit it right on the head because this competition mirrors what military first responders do. For example, the air challenge is there are a number of buildings that are in the field of play. They do have line of sight. They can view the field of play.
So the drone is never getting out. They're not flying over places.
No blind sight.
We do it in a gym, but they're not blind. They can see it. And they have to go out and identify the building where there has been a radiation leak. And so they have to read a QR code to identify the level of radiation at that building. And then they have to drop a payload because it's supposed that they're dropping something for survivors or whatever, and they have to hit the mark. So exactly the types of things that we're seeing in every day. The land challenge is simulation of an earthquake. So we've got fallen trees, fallen wires, and all kinds of stuff in the land challenge. That they do not have line of sight, so they have to sit with their back to it, and they have to use a camera, and they have to navigate through the course, find objects, and place them in a specific location. So they're taking things to survivors again of an earthquake. So totally in line. Yeah.
And that is so in line. Many people are familiar with the DARPA, and I'm not going to ring the bell because I won't get the acronym right, but it is a Defense Department program the challenges that they have done that universities like Penn State, Virginia Tech do, where some of the first unmanned autonomous vehicles were the result of some of those challenges. So I can see a kid who gets really lit up by this choosing a college because they wanted to further their work. I don't know if that's happened.
I'm sure that it probably influences them. And I would also say the Sea Challenge,
Please, that one.
you know, so you've seen the Key Bridge recently collapse. And if you've been listening to what they're doing, they're sending down autonomous vehicles to see what's going on before they send people in there to try to do work. And so in this challenge, there's been some type of a wreck, and they have to recover things from the bottom of the ocean floor and place them in a specific
And that's a
place.
blind challenge
And
as
it's
well.
also blind too. They have to have a camera on their ROV in order to do the challenge.
And
So,
ROV.
remote operated vehicle.
There we go. I haven't gotten to use this much lately, so I'm really glad to do a show where there's lots of bell ringing.
The really cool thing is the day of the event, the excitement, the parents, the other teammates, the cheering. You know,
It's like watching a golf match.
It's
Totally silent, and then when they can do something, everybody goes crazy. So
it's all three challenges, whether it's air, the land, or the sea. You know, the spectators are just intent watching what's going on. The creativity of the kids. You know, you want to share the Florida team story?
This is a little maybe off color a little bit, but we did have a Florida team, and they had some difficulty with their Sea Challenge being able to remain buoyant, and so they were having a leak that they could not resolve. So they actually all-girl team, yep. So they used a tampon to solve their problem.
Adapt and improvise.
He did.
Yes. But it was really amazing. We had the team from Lakeland last year, their air drone. They used a revolving dropping apparatus, you know, trying to come up with a way to carry multiple payloads, but have it click, drop one, click, drop two, click, drop three. Very creative. We had another one, filled it up with, I don't even know what it was in there, but
those little aqua type beads, and they just went
everywhere in the gym. But
they met their target.
They got their target. Yeah. So it was a different mind thinking process that they came through versus the other team.
I'm sure that the folks who put this on love watching the kids like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of doing it that way, right?
I think they see something different every time. And then
we do.
Yeah. For Penn State, they're in, I believe, 5 states. They're in Michigan. They do this with school divisions in Michigan, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and also in Virginia. And the gal that we work with through Penn State, her and her husband go to all of those challenges, and I'm sure they see a variety of things from all the students.
What do kids tell you after doing this?
I think one of the biggest things that we heard early on from high school students was, if I had seen this when I was in middle school, they're juniors or seniors, and they've already made some decisions about what they're going to do. And they said they would have probably done something different if they had been exposed to it in middle school. So that was very profound to hear that from a kid that recognized that.
And then I think it was last year, well, actually a couple of years, we've helped teams. When I say help, with the middle school teams, we felt, they're at a little disadvantage. We had one teacher, never did anything robotics before, but she was very passionate about participating.
40 kids.
Yeah, she had 40 kids. So Christine, myself, a few of the other ITRTs, and some of the other tech staff from the department, we went out and helped their teams. We had one group that helped the land team build their robot, and that, this is a middle school team building a robot from scratch. We had the drone team. I think you and I worked with the drone teams. But watching those kids, now these are 6th graders, 7th graders, and maybe some 8th graders, take these projects on and have no experience with them at all. But to watch their growth from the start of the project to after the competition, totally amazing. And then we have students that are returning again, and their excitement, their energy, their passion. You go into their classroom today. I was over there last week at Ms. Owens' classroom, and 2 of them had competed before. Mr. Littlefield, Mr. Oakham. They wanted to show me what they had done for this year's coming up.
How this year was better than last year. Yeah, that's really cool. And again, I think it's in a time when the profession of teaching is difficult. It's probably more difficult than it's ever been. We need to give kids as many opportunities and teachers as many opportunities to have these shining moments, right? What's the award ceremony look like?
So at the end, nobody knows, because you are scored on your preliminary design review. And the biggest thing there is get it in on time. You have 2 runs, so they do a run in the morning, then they have lunch, and then they run in the afternoon. And really, that's designed around you're going to fail the first time. You're not going to be successful, even though they've read everything and they've tried everything, thinking they know what the competition will look like. They fail, and so then at lunch they adapt and change, and they borrow solder kits and all kinds of stuff, and then they come back and they do better the second time around. So then we total all those points up. And it's exciting.
The judges, are also there as almost mentors. They work with the students. They help them get through their challenge. During the break time, it's like going to a NASCAR race because everybody's working on pit crews are working on the robots and you're or fixing it or whatever.
And nobody's taking a nap during the break.
Oh no, they're eating their lunch while working on their robot, whether it's a modification to design, a repair, or this just didn't work. How do I make this work? And it's a lot of energy going on. The parents, the parents are there watching their students, and they're wanting to get in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's very exciting to watch.
And it's funny, they'll watch other teams, but they also, because we give them all their own classroom, so they can meet, and they call it their war room usually, and so they're running back there as soon as they finish, so they can start making adaptations to what they've done. So they're really engaged.
Yeah, the students are the key. I mean, and to watch the energy, the excitement, they're lit up. They're excited about what they're doing, and it's not. And I don't think they think they're working on a robot.
They're working on a problem.
It's a problem. They're solving a problem.
That's so key to everything. Well, by the time this episode airs, your challenge will have happened already. What's the date of the challenge this
May
year?
18th.
The video will be online. The videos are great. A lot of fun to watch. Is there an easy way for people to learn more? If somebody listening to this says, I think this is something we should be doing, either here or doing themselves, how does somebody find out more from you or from Penn State?
So Penn State does have a website. So if you Google Sea, Air, Land Challenge Penn State, you'll find that website. And there's a lot of information on there. Folks can reach out to me by email or to John by email. Absolutely. Be willing to answer any questions. And we really would love to see another location in Virginia maybe host, and we could collaborate together.
We would go out and help them with their event if they did.
Correct.
Well, I feel like that is a challenge issued to those of us, west of Charlottesville, but there's so much state out there. People forget that where we are right now is probably a 8 or 9 hour drive from the tip of the state in the west. So if that should happen, we will give you guys all the credit and also give you a call.
We'll come out and help the event.
All right, you heard it here. They will come out.
I will help.
I just want to thank you guys for taking the time. I want to thank everybody who's taken the time this year, throughout this whole season, to be a part of this podcast. All of the episodes are available at the activatedlearningpodcast.com website or the Blue Ridge PBS website, or many other ways to get to it. It's available on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. So hope you'll watch those, listen to them, subscribe. And I look forward to coming back another time and learning more about the cool things going on here in Suffolk City Schools.
This is Activated Learning from Blue Ridge PBS in partnership with the Virginia Department of Education and in collaboration with Visti. If you like what you hear, subscribe to Activated Learning wherever you get your podcasts. If you've got an idea for an upcoming show, let us know at activatedlearning@blueridgepbs.org.
Activated Learning was created by Blue Ridge PBS in partnership with the Virginia Department of Education and in collaboration with the Virginia Society for Technology and Education. Produced by Tom Landon, Director of Educational Innovation at Blue Ridge PBS, with a lot of help from graphic and audio designer Jay Prater, podcast studio producers Andy Depew and Kurt Schruth, and Vice President of Education Dr. Rose Martin. Our theme music was composed and produced by Ryan Champney and Dr. Matt Katatachea of Visti.